once again, dancing with the basketball, seeing it go through the net.
And Angel Reese knows a ring.
It's not just race, though. It's also sexuality. Caitlin Clark is a white heterosexual woman in a black lesbian league, and they resent and are jealous of all of the attention.
Carter and Clark.
You know why we didn't do a better job of promoting the WNBA? Because the numbers, the eyeballs, the interest, the sizzle, the headlines were not there. No one cared. The public didn't care. You make the call because of the betterment of the whole in the end. That is not compromising your integrity. That is business. And y'all are gonna find that out.
Women's basketball is finally receiving mainstream attention, and the days of the WNBA being the laughingstock of the sports world are finally gone. And a lot of it has to do with this emergence of the new generation of women hoopers like Juju Watkins, Angel Reese, and Cameron Brink. But most of all, Caitlin Clark, the most polarizing athlete alive today. You see, Caitlin has revitalized women's basketball, bringing in so many new eyes to the sport with her exciting style of play, basically looking like the second coming of 2016 Steph Curry. Her games have received massive turnouts and history-breaking viewership, and with so many new sets of eyes comes a lot of horrible opinions and misguided think pieces surrounding her popularity. From veteran players to former superstars, and especially media pundits from all sides who are using her and her emergence to import their political views onto new audiences. You got people on one end who are saying that she's only popular due to her sexual orientation and I'm sorry, I can't say this last part without laughing. Benefiting from pretty privilege. I mean, I don't know about that pretty privilege part though.
That's hate.
And then on the other end, you have these conservative media analysts and delusional sports commentators like local bacon-backed bastard Jason Whitlock claiming that she's suffering from reverse racism and even comparing her experience in the WNBA to Jackie Robinson, unironically. The same Jackie Robinson who received constant racial ridicule on the field is somehow the equivalent of a rookie getting hip-checked by vets. This kind of commentary is pretty interesting because it seems like these niggas only ever understand racism when it's time to victimize a white girl, but never anyone else outside of that. And not for nothing, I think you all suck. And as a matter of fact, new rule. From now on, if you cannot clap the backboard on your layups, all basketball related opinions are now null and void and belong straight in the garbage. You see, politics intertwining with sports in America has been a thing since at least the 60s, despite all the pleas from folks saying that they have no place in sports, and the 60s in particular was a time where black athletes had grown tired of representing a country that looked down on them and consistently offered them nothing but contempt and injustice. The most notable activists came in the form of the 1968 protest of Tommie Smith and John Carlos, who famously rose their black gloved fists in the air during the medal ceremony of the 1968 Olympics, a message sent to the world that identity in America is more defining than your accomplishments, good, bad, or indifferent. And even now in the modern day, this isn't any different because in all these conversations surrounding Caitlin, I think the main thing that gets lost in translation is that Caitlin herself doesn't say or do anything to warrant any of the criticism that is thrown her way. Caitlin, for all intents and purposes, is the very thing that women's basketball has been missing for a very long time. Because look, if I'm being as objective as I can be, the WNBA for a long time was not a good product overall. Sure, you had great players, but the style of play was not exciting as a whole, and more importantly, there were no narratives or storylines that piqued the interest of the casual fan. And unfortunately, whenever it comes to casuals becoming invested in anything, you need to have at least one of the following things: a product that can be exciting or interesting, and a narrative that draws out strong emotional responses. If you think about all the most popular and infamous figures in sports, politics, or even social media spaces, they all fit this standard in one way or another. This is the difference between why LeBron, Kobe, and Michael Jordan were so big, and why someone like Tim Duncan was never even in consideration of being the face of basketball, even though he was a certified superstar level player. You see, Tim Duncan had a very fundamental style of play with little to no excitement, and he didn't stick out personality wise. He basically just played the game and went home. He was meat and potatoes as and while that meal is stable and reliable, it isn't sexy. And while basketball fans can appreciate Tim Duncan and all the greatness that he's shown throughout his career, ultimately, it's the casual fan who dictates the popularity of anything in the mainstream, not the niche appreciators. And while excitement is still a part of the standard, I would argue that narrative is king overall. You see, once upon a time, the NBA was a joke of a league, only known for crackheads and degeneracy. But with some luck from the basketball gods, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird would be drafted to the two most storied franchises in NBA history, the Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers. And together, the two would bring the league into mainstream prominence with their legendary rivalry. But Magic and Larry had previously clashed during their college days, where Magic had led the Michigan State Spartans to victory in the 1979 NCAA championship over Larry Bird and Indiana State. The crux of their rivalry, however, stemmed from the narrative that the two were polar opposites of each other while also being the best players in basketball. You see, Magic was the exciting, charismatic magnet who controlled the game while revolutionizing the point guard position, expanding people's minds on what a point guard could be and do. And Larry, on the other end, was the elite high-scoring forward who could also dominate the game in a multitude of ways while also playing the quote-unquote right way. Oh, and by the way, Larry was white and Magic was black in a time that wasn't too far removed from the civil rights movement. And while Magic had led the Showtime Lakers in Hollywood, Larry seemingly received more media coverage and praise that highlighted him in ways that rubbed people the wrong way, and it led to the speculation that it was due to his whiteness, from both the players and the fans alike. Is this story starting to sound a little familiar yet?
I always felt that the press was biased in favor of Larry Bird. It always felt to me like they were gonna make Larry the hero. You know, you'd see somebody score and Larry would be in a cast in a suit on the bench and they'd say, Larry Bird made that possible a couple weeks ago when he told that guy he could do it and he just did it. They gonna get his motherfucker the assistant, he not in the game?
Not to be racist, but we have a white guy who's the best in the world. It's predominantly a black sport now. And you got a guy like Larry Bird who can't run, who can't jump, but can do everything out there.
And the major tipping point would come after the Celtics' 1987 playoff series win over the Detroit Pistons, where Isaiah Thomas, the team's captain and best player, had echoed the same sentiments of his teammate Dennis Rodman over Larry as a player, asserting that while Larry was a good basketball player, they believed that he was only receiving this elevated media attention due to being a white player in a majority black league.
It starts because an unsophisticated Dennis Rodman is asked about Larry Bird.
Larry Bird was the god in the NBA. You know, he's like the great white hope. And I said, if Larry Bird was a black guy, he'd just be a regular old basketball player. And I didn't realize what I said, you know.
And someone ran over with that comment and asked Isaiah Thomas, your teammate said something. Do you agree with it?
A very, very good basketball player. I think he's an exceptional talent, but I'd have to agree with Rodman. If he was black, he'd be just another good guy.
And while basketball fans know and respect that Larry was deserving of the praise that he got, because at his peak, you could comfortably say he was a top 2 player in the league, if not number 1, Isaiah's comments spoke to a feeling that has been persistent throughout American history with black folks. And that is the feeling of being pushed aside for our white counterparts, and moreover, watching them receive more positive attention for things that we do just as good as them, if not better. In essence, this is the problem that people have with Caitlin Clark. It's not her as a person, it's really her as a concept and what that concept represents, unfortunately. And look, I'm all for the growth of women's basketball, no matter who's the one that's leading the charge, but I can also understand the frustration that comes with it being presented in the form of Caitlin Clark. And for those who are claiming that this is just oversensitivity, let me attempt to explain why it's not, or at least explain where this feeling stems from. America has a negative trend of gaslighting and punishing black folks over the contributions in this country that we're responsible for, and then subsequently praising white people for doing the same exact things. And a lot of people, unfortunately, will never know the names Little Richard, Chuck Berry, or even Robert Johnson, but everyone has heard of Elvis Presley, and more importantly, his moniker, the King of Rock and Roll. Yet Elvis himself has acknowledged and stated many times throughout his career that he basically took what those guys did verbatim. But that never stopped the media from giving him all the acclaim, even now. Same goes for jazz, blues, country music, braids, even ice cream, like gangsta. I wish I was trolling with this last one, but I'm not. When people say that all we do is cry racism for everything, I'm not gonna hold you. When you start doing the science, we're never that far off. Like, they deadass wouldn't let us have vanilla ice cream, and because we were denied access to vanilla ice cream during Jim Crow, even though it was not an official law, a relationship with butter pecan ice cream was developed as a result. For those who don't know, the origins of butter pecan ice cream actually start with an enslaved man named Antoine, who we unfortunately don't have much information on outside of the idea that he may have been Creole, as is the case unfortunately with a lot of slaves back in the 1800s. But during his time in Louisiana, Antoine had found a way to cultivate pecan trees in the mid-1800s, and because pecans were native to the South and easily accessible, it helped butter pecan become a staple ice cream flavor amongst black folks in America. Tell this story next time you hear someone complain about how all black people do is cry racism for everything. I'm sure they'll use the generic "it was a different time" excuse when they hear this, followed up with the classic "it was a long time ago, get over it." The problem with this is that all of us understand the concept of unfairness, even our primate relatives, and none of us enjoy being on the side of being wronged unfairly and treated with negative bias and prejudice on a continuous basis. It's because of this nasty trend that the media still tries to enact every now and again that people are very quick to put these things on Caitlyn, especially when questionable figures like chaotic Caucasoid Dave Portnoy and Fox News pundits are championing her so much. And with this kind of proximity to these problematic figures, it makes her even more enticing to attack. Moreover, this nasty double standard has exposed itself when it comes to the difference in media treatment between Caitlyn and Angel Reese. I remember Caitlyn doing the John Cena "You Can't See Me" celebration in the NCAA tournament and watching Twitter and everyone in the nation celebrate her and enjoying the competitive fire that she displayed. But when LSU beat them in the NCAA championship and Angel Reese did the same celebration back to her, those same problematic pundits and figures acted as if she just took a shit on the Statue of Liberty while wiping her ass with the American flag. And this is why I said earlier, if you can't clap the backboard on your layups, you shouldn't talk basketball, because it's really my sarcastic and asshole stern way of saying that if you have never played a real contact sport in your life, then please shut the fuck up. Because there are certain aspects of sports culture that happen very often, and if you're not familiar with it or you're overly sensitive, you're going to misinterpret it. Look, was her getting hip checked by Kennedy Carter unnecessary and a non-basketball play?
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock!
But physical fouls like that are an unofficial part of basketball, because things like that are a means of intimidating you to throw you off your game and make you play bad. And honestly, in a sick, twisted kind of way, it's a sign of respect. It's a message that you are so important, or at the very least, you're taking up so much real estate in our minds that we need to make you a non-factor in order to win. Because no one is trying to get in the head of the bench warmer who gets 10 seconds of burn. Don't believe me? Just watch this real quick, please.
This by Ariza. Here comes Giannis. Hold on here. This is Giannis. Will be hoisted up.
Bit of a history. Of course, Morris walked behind Doncic. He said it was unintentional, but stepped on his.
James with the smaller McCollum on him, gets past him, and is grabbed again. Hits the floor hard. Tyson Chandler.
Beal. He is dragged down by Dellavedova.
Bryant says, oh my gosh, now this clothesline Bryant.
Look, it's all harmless and a part of sports culture. And if Caitlyn can't handle it, then she isn't the player we all think she is. It's just that simple. But look, I don't know anything about Caitlyn Clark as a person or how she thinks or feels. I just know her as a basketball player. And until some real bullshit comes out of her mouth directly, I don't think the criticism that she has received is warranted. So to use her as a vessel to get your political talking points off, no matter what side you fall on, is removing her sense of humanity for the sake of views and clicks shamelessly. And right now, the WNBA is a hotter topic than even the NBA, but it's not for the right reasons. We have talented women who are having great seasons right now, but everyone is choosing to focus on whether or not Caitlyn is a victim of racism or just another case of a great white hope getting more shine than her black counterparts undeservedly. And it's not productive or helpful to any of the parties involved.